That's the other nice thing about relief work. There's no harm in trying it out. And if you don't like it, then maybe you shift into that try before you buy mode and you start using relief to find that place where you want to settle in and kind of work within those parameters. There's definitely nothing wrong with not knowing yet if you don't know. Because how do we know these things until we try?
Hi, guys, and welcome to the House Call Vet Cafe podcast. I'm Dr. Eve Harrison. I'm a full-time integrative concierge house call veterinarian in Los Angeles, and I help other vets to build their unique mobile practices on their terms. This podcast is for and by house call and mobile veterinarians, so it is meant to give our community a platform to connect, to share our stories, to lift each other up, and to support each other. Most of us work solo as lone wolves, right? So for me, it's been really powerful to be able to physically hear the voices of my colleagues from all over the world and to get a chance to feel that we truly are part of a community of very real other human beings who get it. While you may be alone in that little bubble of your own vehicle when you're on the road seeing patients, I welcome you to join our community by tuning into our own podcast when you're on your way to your next house call. Whether you're a super experienced house call vet with 30 years of experience, you're a brand new prospective house call vet just looking to get started, or you're house call curious, there will be something for you in this podcast. Each episode, you will hear interviews from other mobile veterinarians just like yourself who are doing unique and innovative things, vets who are sharing their stories, their struggles and challenges, and you can also look forward to hearing valuable information and perspectives from specialists and experts outside of our micro niche. And finally, if becoming a house call veterinarian is something that you've been thinking about exploring, or you're looking for some extra support getting your own mobile practice to feel more profitable and sustainable for you, check out the information in the show notes about my course and our above and beyond supportive private community for members only, plus our monthly group coaching sessions within the House Call Vet Academy. You can also check out my free public Facebook group, which is also called the House Call Vet Cafe, the same name as this podcast, and which is a warm and cozy community for mobile vets to support each other in professional and personal development, in creative entrepreneurship, and in friendship. So thank you guys for spending time with me today. Let's dive into the episode.
Okay, everyone. Today we have a really special guest. We have Dr. Cindy Trice with us. She has spent the majority of her 18-year veterinary career as a relief vet, working in multiple states and many, she's lost count, unique ER, GP, shelter, and mobile practices. Early on in her career, she discovered a passion for serving her colleagues and helping them to take a break, which is awesome. She's also the founder of two companies, the Magnificent Relief Rover, a platform connection for relief vets and techs to find jobs, resources, community, and tools to help them grow their business. And she also has another amazing company that I didn't know about called KickIt Pajamas, designing and selling beautiful, functional, and comfortable pajamas, clothing, and other accessories for women undergoing cancer treatment or recovery. You're literally an angel. Oh my God. What a cool thing. Welcome, Cindy. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah. So first of all, I wanted to start out the episode by asking, what's your favorite snack to eat in the car? And I know you're in the car because you're doing relief work, you're traveling, and some of it mobile. What do you like to snack on in the car?
Well, I feel like what I should say is something like baby carrots. But if I'm telling the truth, potato chips.
All right. Okay. And that's fair. Potato's a vegetable as far as I'm concerned.
That's right.
Well, what kind of potato chips?
Just plain, straight up salt, just like, like the sea salt, maybe sea salt and vinegar,
Yeah.
but not any of the ones that are going to turn my fingers orange or something like that. I really
Okay.
just like the straight up ones. Now, I would also confess to being excited about eating chocolate in the car, but I live in Florida, so it's hot. The chocolate gets melty, and inevitably I will have chocolate on my clothing or on my car seats. So I avoid chocolate in the car.
That's really funny. I wanted to say that the salt and vinegar, oh, what are those? Like kettle chips, I think?
Yeah.
Or the reason that I got through pretty much every overnight ER relief shift that I ever did. That is the only reason that I survived. Vinaigrette is so addictive.
They're so addictive.
It's like my mouth hurts. I need too much vinegar. And I also wanted to say chocolate in the car in LA. I have more melted chocolate on my car dashboard than you ever could want to know. It's very embarrassing. So I feel you on those snacks. Excellent choices. So, can you tell me a little bit about how you became a relief vet and what your journey was like towards getting there?
Yeah, definitely. So I kind of had a few evolutions as a relief vet. So I never really planned on being a relief vet, but I graduated in 2004 and I did an internship, but I got sick and had to drop out. So once I got well, I worked as an associate at this practice, but it really, really bugged me that I didn't finish that internship. So I went back and started over and I did the internship. And when I was done with that, which was 2007, I had this choice to make. I could go back to the practice where I was, and it was a great practice. I really did like it. But I also knew that, there's a lot out there, and I didn't want to get stuck with, one mindset and one way of doing things. I am a sampler by nature. I love to just like try stuff. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to take this opportunity to go just look around and see what other practices are out there. And so I was doing relief the first time, really just kind of out of, I don't know, curiosity, nosiness, like to see like what other practices are like. And I didn't have anything clear in my mind, like, oh, I'm doing this because I want to be a career relief vet, or I'm doing this because I'm shopping for a place to land. It was literally just kind of hustling work and
Yeah.
taking it day by day with no clear plan,
Yeah.
which is kind of my MO in life anyway.
That's awesome.
But then I had this like shift. My husband got a job. He's a freelance photographer and he got a job at a photography school in Missoula, Montana. And so we were going to live 6 months in Florida and 6 months in Missoula. And we did this for 3 years. And so then I was going to a community where I didn't know any of the clinics. And so I, sent them my resume and my cover letter and said, I'm going to be in town. I'd love to meet you. And I'm available for relief work. And first of all, they didn't even want to meet me. They were just like, oh my gosh, you're a warm body with a vet degree. Can you work?
Yeah.
Can you just work? Like, it's amazing, like how much the need for,
Yes.
there's such a need for relief vets.
Yes.
So that was when I had the shift, when I was like, oh, wait a second. This actually can be a career choice. And I'm a business to business service provider. I didn't think of it that way before. And once I started to think of it that way, it became so much more fun. It was fun before, but it became really fun because one, I found that I love giving my colleagues a break. Two, I found that I love seeing how different practices do things and I learn so much from that. And three, I loved being my own boss, like and controlling my own schedule and never getting bored, because I could just change it up whenever I felt like it.
Amen. Oh my God, yes. That story is it resonates for me so much because I'm kind of like, I like how you said that I'm a sampler. I'm also a sampler. Like, if I go to a restaurant and there's like a flight of something on the menu, I will get that flight. Like, I want to try all the things, Like, and it's so interesting how you said that. Like, I actually feel like if I had another life and I opened a restaurant, it would be called Flight and it would be just flights of everything. Like flights of chocolate, flights of potato chips, flights of booze.
I would be your number one customer.
Wouldn't that be amazing?
Yes.
But I mean, you're so right about like how if you hop from one practice to another, you learn so much and you see so many different ways of doing it and kind of like can understand that there's no one way to do anything. Like it's one of the most, for me personally, when I used to do more relief work, it's one of the things that I think really opened my mind the most about what it means to be a veterinarian and that there's just so many ways that we can be ourselves in this work and so many ways that we can help. And there's no one right or wrong. And I think that hopping to different practices really drilled that for me. So I so resonate with what you're saying and that idea that, there's such a need. And, while at the same time fulfilling a need and giving relief to other vets and letting them take a break while meanwhile you own your own thing. And so, I mean, it's just such a great synergy.
Yeah. And relief vets have been in our profession for a long time. And I think for a while, at one point, it was just, your buddy down the street would help you out. Right. And then the kind of relief staffing agencies came along. But it wasn't, at least in my experience, it wasn't until fairly recently that it really has become a thing where it's really become a potential career choice. And it can be a true career choice or it can fit into whatever phase of life you may be in. So maybe you're in a phase of life where you have childcare or you have elder care. I'm in the elder care phase of
Same.
life.
Same.
So maybe, yeah, or maybe you're in like an adventurous phase of life where you've got nothing tying you down, right? You don't have a mortgage. Maybe, you don't have a spouse, or you have a freelance spouse like mine I can drag them all over the place. Maybe you're in a situation where you want your life to be an adventure for a period of time. And that's the lovely, lovely thing about relief. The other thing is maybe you're starting your own business, like a mobile practice, right? And you just want, while you're kind of getting that built up, you're balancing out your income with relief work. And another great thing, if you think you want to be a practice owner, oh my gosh, doing relief work is the best thing to do, because you can literally create your perfect practice in your head. Because you can be like, oh, I love what happens over here at this place. That doesn't really work. I see the same bottlenecks over and over and over, and I'm going to come up with solutions to avoid those bottlenecks, right?
Yes.
You can build a perfect practice. And then another thing that I think this is going to become more and more popular, and my hope is that this just becomes the norm.
Yes.
Okay. Bear with me for 1 second with this one.
Okay.
So I always say, like, with Reliever, it was like a dating site, right? So we're just connecting people. We don't, and we're not like a staffing agency. We, if you get married, great. If you just want to keep dating, great. We don't.
It is. It's like long-term dating, isn't it?
If you think about it, right? So if you imagine, did you ever do like a dating site or app?
Yeah, that's how I met my husband.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Yeah, I got at the boyfriend store.
You met, see this? Okay. So you're going to totally relate to this. Well, let me ask you this. How long did you guys date?
4 years.
Okay. So imagine you go on this dating site and you see this perfect person. They're holding their dog. They love their mother. They make a ton of money. They're super cute. They're really funny. Whatever your boxes are, those are my boxes. Whatever your boxes are, right? They check every single one of them off. And then at the bottom of their profile or whatever, it says, let's get married. You'd be like, no, creeper, don't even know you, right?
Exactly.
You wouldn't do it.
Exactly.
You date, because dating is a try before you buy market. So
true.
why would we look at a job post that says, we have great culture, we have an awesome team, we have this machine and that machine, and we, and then you go for one, maybe two interviews at best. Everyone's on their best behavior, right? Because they're wooing you.
Of course.
You sign a contract, and maybe that contract is a non-compete, which can very much affect your life.
Very much so.
And then you find out 3 to 6 months in that one or the other or both of you don't like each other. It's not a good fit. And you've got to unwind all of that. And I have thought to myself that everybody should relief before they agree to any job, because we wouldn't marry someone after one date. Now, I know that happens, but it's rare, right? We wouldn't do it. We date for some period of time until we feel comfortable getting into a serious relationship. And a job is a serious relationship. So I think that's the other thing. I think relief is the new talent acquisition for those that don't want to do it as a career.
Oh, you're a genius. This gave me chills so much.
Oh, good.
It really, like, so good. You're so right. Like, everything you said about the non-competes, like, I mean, almost in some ways you sell your soul, because, sometimes it's a good match and sometimes it isn't. It's a union just like a marriage. That is an incredible analogy. It's incredible because the truth is sometimes we spend more time at our place of work and with our work family than with our real family or our actual chosen significant other. And most of us have heard that phrase, like, you become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Like, I don't want to become something that I'm not dead sure is the right match for me in terms of personality, ethics, quality of life, what they consider to be work-life balance, because everyone is using that phrase now. It means nothing anymore. Pretty much, right?
Exactly.
Right. It irks me when I see that. I know it irks people. Some folks who find work-life balance, there's some folks in like some generations that are like, well, you came here to work. What do you mean work-life balance? This is your job. To me, I'm the opposite. I'm like, work-life balance, I'll tell you what that means to me. You have no idea what that means to me. And yeah, and I think as a relief vet, I know you value your freedom. I know
Hmm.
anyone who does like career relief, like, talking to our dear friend Mariam Kamal, who I mentioned in my very
Love
first
her.
episode. Love her. Shout out officially to the one and only Dr. Mariam Kamal. We've talked about this so much, the freedom and the ability to, have what work-life balance means to you. And I know for Mar, she lived in Costa Rica for a while. Like, she just went off and had a crazy adventure. Like, I'm wearing this necklace actually in honor of Mar because I went to visit her in Costa Rica when she lived there. And I got this there. It's a watermelon tourmaline. Um,
Oh, I love
yeah, so
that.
I got this with Mar in Costa Rica when she was just went off and took a vacation because she could, because she's a relief vet. It was just incredible. So you are a really interesting guest on the show because you're not exactly a house call vet, but I do consider relief work to be kind of like an extension of mobile practice almost. Like, one of my evisms that I say is that house call practice and relief work pair like dark chocolate and fine wine because of the way that
Mhm.
we find freedom and our own businesses. And they're just so synergistic and so similar. Can you speak on how relief work and freedom might be related for you in your mind?
Oh gosh, it's completely related because we all think about it as autonomy, right? Like we love autonomy, many of us, right? We want the ability to control our own schedules, our own lives. And I love what you said about what work-life balance means to you. Work-life balance means something different to everyone. And as your own business, you have some level of freedom in designing a work life balance that is your definition of it and not somebody else's definition of it. So I think it's that autonomy and freedom that's personal. But I also think there's such a service side to it as well. It isn't just all about us. Like, I think there's also a synergy or, it's analogous because so for a relief vet, we consider the practice or the clinicians that we're filling in for. Those are our clients. Those are our customers. Now, of course, we take care of the pet parent and the pet as part of that and as part of our duty as a veterinarian and so much of what we love to do. But there is this real feeling of freedom or satisfaction in giving your colleagues some freedom because we've all been there, right? Like we've all been there as vets where we're burnt out, we're tired, we feel used and abused and just overwhelmed with all of it. And for me, it is such a wonderful thing. And as a mobile vet, I imagine you're serving, you're getting to serve, you're building your clients of pet parents and pets and serving them in a way that's different than what they can get in a clinic. That's so much more personal. And I imagine you get to know them so much better. And I imagine from a medical perspective, you see so much more of what's going on. You can probably provide even better medical advice when you see the context that that animal is living in and, what may be contributing to disease states or not. So, yeah, I mean, I think freedom and it's the freedom of owning your own business. It comes with responsibility too, but everything does, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I really love that. And it's really important where you said that. I mean, it's freedom, but you are in a service position and you are giving something to the clinic that you are working for. So, I mean, doing business is never like you get something free. That's it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's not satisfying anyway,
Right.
right? Like, I mean, maybe sort of the me side of things is great when you're your own boss, but there's the responsibility side of things. And I think, whether you want to be an associate vet, a practice owner, a mobile vet, a relief vet, you're in a service industry and enjoying service will make you much happier at your career if you enjoy serving people, because that's what
Love
this business is.
that. I love that. I love that. I have a lot of focus in kind of what I do and what I teach people on the take back your freedom, take back your life. And at the end of the day, it's that very much so. But you're very, very right about the fact that this is a service profession. And the reason that most of us are in it is because we like to give, we like to help. Like, we have to remember that. And I think that's just a really great reminder, what you just said about that. And that when you can enjoy the service aspect, knowing that you're giving, that you're going to be better at it, you're going to enjoy the larger scope of the whole experience. And to kind of tap into that, I think is a really important thing. So thank you for that reminder. And it reminds me, I was a relief vet from the very beginning. So I did an internship and I did part of a surgical residency. And I ended up doing relief work by default, basically. To me, I didn't find a practice that I wanted to join fully. I was burnt. I was like, nobody's going to own me. I need to know what it was exactly what you said. I need to date for a while. And it turns out I never wanted to marry any of the practices that I relieved at. I found some that were wonderful practices, but I just found that I had my own ideas about what I wanted to be doing and who I wanted to be surrounded by all day, all night. You know what I mean? And so I ended up just kind of like going from one practice to another and kind of accumulating ideas, like you said, about what I wanted to do different mostly. And so, kind of going back to your previous point, I think Marigold Veterinary, which is my house call practice, I have to thank a lot of those practices for both showing me what works and a lot of what doesn't. Uh,
Yes.
yeah. And so that was also a beautiful exchange as well. Like I'm learning and I'm giving as well. And I don't need to do relief work anymore. I needed to as I was building my house call practice. As you mentioned, they can pair together well and allow you certain, transition periods and certain phases in your life to happen as you need them to. And now I don't need to relief. My business is self sustaining, but when I relief, it is completely as a favor to help my colleagues. So
Mhm.
for me, relief has become purely about that service thing. It feels really good now. I used to get more burnt out in the clinic, but now when I know I'm here to help, that's it. Like
Yeah.
it feels really good and people appreciate it because there's such an incredible need, just like you said.
I mean, when we help people and we're kind to people, I mean, you could argue that it's selfish because it releases endorphins, right? Like we've evolved to want to help and to want to serve, and some people may be lean that way more than others, but there's a selfish reason behind it. It makes us feel good. And I think that's great.
I think it's great too. That's such an interesting subject. And I've thought about that very concept before as well. Like, I am doing this for a selfish reason, but helping myself, I'm helping others. And it's such an interesting thing. And, I think they're not mutually exclusive, I think was kind of I've thought about it and like, oh God, am I a selfish, bad person? Like anything I do that's good is because I feel good. My God. And, I was like, they're not mutually exclusive. In fact, it's like you said, it's kind of like an evolutionary master plan that like for us to be good feels good. So let's have both. It's so interesting, that subject. I love it. So, can you tell me a little bit about any challenges you might have faced as a relief vet? Like for me, for example, when I was a relief vet before I was a mobile vet and I was doing this kind of by default, I had this imposter syndrome around it. Like my colleagues wouldn't see me as a real vet. Like, what practice do you actually work at? None. And then, once I became a house call vet, I struggled with that same imposter syndrome. Are you a real vet? I don't know. And I've gotten over that now over time. Did you have to deal with anything like that or any other issues that have been a challenge for you as a relief vet?
Yeah. Oh, gosh. Absolutely. And I think, well, there's two things. There was personally things that I felt or that happened to me. And imposter syndrome, in some ways, is a good way to say it because I would go to these practices. And as a relief vet, you just have to get over this. You have to learn to accept it. You are being judged every
Yeah.
single solitary time. And it's okay because if you're truly honest with yourself, if you put yourselves in their shoes, like if you're the associate and you have a relief vet coming in, you're going to do the same thing. It is human nature. It's nothing to be offended by, but it's easy to feel offended by it or to feel intimidated by it or scared. But once I had that realization that, you know what, I am going to be judged every time I come in here. And, I just check my ego at the door. I have no ego around it. I know more now as a vet than I did. Actually, I think I might have in some ways known more before because I forgot a bunch of stuff. But
Me too.
but I have more experience now, right, than
Yeah.
I did in the beginning. And with experience comes some level of confidence. But by no stretch of the imagination do I know everything. And now I feel like I'm getting into that phase where like I'm that old vet that doesn't know some of the new stuff, right? And so what I realize is I always have something to learn from everyone on the team. If I don't know, I'll pretend to know. I'm
Good.
very willing to admit that, oh, I'm not sure about that or what to do. But what I do know is that I know how to figure it out. I know I have resources. I can ask people. I can go back to the basics and work my way through just about anything, even if it's making me nervous at the time. So I think, I did struggle with feeling very uncomfortable with being judged. And when I accepted it, I was like, you know what? That's all right. That's part of this process. And in some ways, I kind of welcome it, right? Because they're judging your medical skills, but they're also judging your personality. Like, how are you getting along with people? And you, as a relief vet, you're going to work with all different sorts of team members. And some may be warm and welcoming from the get-go, and some may not. Some may be defensive and kind of put you through the ringer. And, my advice is don't get defensive back. Stay calm, be friendly, be professional, because most of the time when people are approaching life that way, who knows? They may have something going on in their life that you don't know about. They may feel insecure around you. And I think just approaching those situations with some level of compassion and calmness will make things better for everyone in the clinic and better for you. And if it's, really kind of about how you feel, you'll feel much better than if you bow up, and get defensive back, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't help anyone.
Yeah. I love that. The relationship with the team is so important when you go into a new practice. And I agree with you very much. I never thought about it as judging, but I did always think of like my first few shifts as an interview, where I was absolutely being assessed and needed to kind of prove that I could gel with the culture of the hospital and could roll with the punches. And, like that the culture of the hospital, I think, is such an important thing to respect it for what it is. Like you come in and, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. I feel like that's a really good kind of approach when you're coming into someone else's hospital. I mean, it's like you're coming into their home. Now that I'm a business owner, if I were to have, I've never had a relief veterinarian per se in my practice, but if I were, I'd be like, I'd have to work really, really hard not to like look over their shoulder and micromanage. I know myself. And, as a guest in someone else's practice, now I understand a lot more than I ever did what that means for them to trust you with their clinic and their team.
Yes.
And I think to be able to like let the team work itself out, like get the yayas out, like whatever their concerns, their fears, like you said, absolutely has nothing to do with you. I mean, if it turns out it's a toxic environment, yeah, don't go back.
Right. And that's the lovely thing about being a relief. You don't have
Right.
to, right?
Right.
But I love what you just said, because it is a privilege and an honor that these business owners are literally turning their business over to you. They're trusting you with their clients. This is no small deal. And I think sometimes as relief vets, we may forget that especially because the supply and demand situation is such that, relief vets can get a job, no problem,
Yep,
right?
our court right now for sure.
Yeah. And that's great. I mean, good for us right now. But I think the thing we don't want to forget is what a privilege and an honor it is, and that you are serving their business. And if you are someone who likes things just so, and you like a routine and you like things to go a certain way and you like a workflow to be a certain way and you only like to use these kinds of meds and you have medical protocols for exactly how you do things, that's great. That is a great way to be a veterinarian. However, you may not like relief work because relief work is not that.
Right.
If you're going to enjoy it. And if you try to force it to be that and you try to make it be that, you're going to probably be unhappy, and the teams that you work with aren't going to like working with you. Because I love what you're saying about you are a guest in someone else's home in a way. You're a guest in someone else's business. And the ability to, I call it being a chameleon or a shapeshifter.
Yeah.
Like that's one of the things that I find to be fun about being a relief vet. I love being a shapeshifter and a like chameleon. And to me, like I'll go into I've worked in these like little rural one doctor practices where the vibe is super chill and we're sitting in the lobby. I mean, this place was really small. We're sitting in the lobby, we're sitting there, we're having coffee. This is how they do it. It's walk-in only. It's not like crazy busy. The pet parents come in, they get offered a cup of coffee. The dog walks around the lobby. We talk. How's the weather? Or how's, The staff is like, oh, your granddaughter got married. How'd it go? Whatever.
Oh.
Like it's chitty chatty. And that's the vibe.
Yeah.
And I remember working at this practice because I had been at a busier practice and I had to like take my type A, let's go personality. And I had to like bring it in. And it feels good, right? Like I was like, oh, I like being this kind of vet for a little while. Like this is awesome. And then, maybe next week I need to turn around and I'm working at an emergency specialty center and I shift to that work mode and to whatever their vibe is. And it doesn't mean I'm not being true to myself or I'm not practicing medicine the way that I feel it should be practiced. I'm just having this experience of getting to adapt and adjust to these different things. And I can do that easily. Not everyone can.
Yeah.
But I think it's part my personality, but I also think it's a skill that I developed as a relief vet. And I think it can be developed.
Oh, I love that. The chameleonism of it is just like, yes. And I think so much of that is similar to being a house call vet as well. Like there's a little bit of improv going on here. Like we don't
Yes.
know exactly what drugs they're going to have. We don't know what personalities we're going to deal with. We don't know what the culture is going to be. I mean, until we've worked at a place numerous times and then and you're part of the team or they consider you that way. But that flexibility and the ability to roll with the punches and be a chameleon and just figure things out a little bit more on the fly is so much a part of being a house call vet, or it can be. I think people who like things just so and, like very, very by the book, very type A in the box, like must be this way, or, it doesn't have to be in the box, but must be my way or the highway. Like there's a lot of us like that. Like we've been selected to be type A folks who think that way, right? So,
Mhm.
of course, there's a lot of us like that. And I mean, that can be a phenomenal doctor who has adoring clients, but you may not like being a
Yeah.
relief vet and you may not enjoy being a house call vet if you're really almost rigid. I think that sort of flexibility and bendability is a very critical part of enjoying what you do. I mean, doesn't mean you can't succeed at it, but it will create challenges if you're not flexible and, able to sway in the wind like the trees. If you're just like a pole, you'll knock over if the wind goes in the wrong direction.
And maybe you don't know that about yourself yet, right? Like that's the other nice thing about relief work. There's no harm in trying it out. And if you don't like it, then maybe you shift into that try before you buy mode and you start using relief to find that place where you want to settle in and kind of work within those parameters. There's definitely nothing wrong with not knowing yet if you don't know. Because how do we know these things until we try? I mean, and I'll give you an example. This is maybe not such the best thing to admit, but I'll admit it anyway, because I have a feeling I'm not the only one who feels this way.
Yes.
But I am such a people person. I love people. I'm definitely not one of those vets that said, I went into this because I love animals and don't like people. That is not me.
Okay.
Love, love, love the people. And so I very much predicted about myself that I would love being at a practice where I could get to know the pet parents and I would follow that pet from kittenhood or puppyhood all the way till their senior years. And then I would be their trusted vet that would, escort them over the Rainbow Bridge. Like I thought that that was going to be what I would love because I love people so much.
Yeah.
You know what? It turns out I can't stand that. Like I've learned, like I don't want to be somebody's favorite vet. What it does is it overwhelms me.
I
And
understand.
I do not like that at all. And that surprised me about myself. And I would not have known that had I not been an associate at a practice for several years and started to develop those kinds of relationships. And I love being a relief vet and I love being an ER vet because I love to build a quick rapport and help solve someone's problem. And it doesn't mean I adore them as people most of the time. I mean, of course, sometimes people are jerks, but
Yeah.
mostly, and mostly I'm very compassionate and forgiving of the jerks, but I don't want that relationship to continue. I'm not interested in that. If I end up running into them again because they end up back at the ER, great. I'm happy to see them again, but I do not want to be their vet. I don't like it.
I have a few colleagues who've had a similar conversation where they're like, it's great what you do, Eve. I just don't want to be their person. I don't want to be the it person. I don't want that. I always tell them, like, I never thought I would want to. I'm actually like the polar opposite to you. I started out thinking like, oh God, I don't want people bothering me all the time. And I don't want to be responsible for all of this or the weight of it, which, the overwhelm of it sometimes still does. I'll give you that. But around end of life, I find overwhelm when I've known the patient for a long, long time. But I found, I don't know why, that's why I did relief for so long. I don't want to deal with people long term. Let's just one and done, like fix the problem, move on, next, next, next. And it turns out, I don't know what changed or how it changed or what, but as a house call vet, I found I love that connection. I love being people's favorite vet. I love it. And it surprised me too, because, I thought all this time, like, when I was vet school, I thought I wanted to do ER. I wanted to do surgery, cut the thing and buy,
Mhm.
like that's what I really thought was my preference. And it changed and it's different now. And I think as I'm listening to myself, I'm thinking sort of part of what I think makes the way that I like to do things and to get that intimacy and the connection and the continuity of care for me is that I practice with a very low volume.
Mm-hmm.
So I think only in small batch does that work for me. So that was kind of the balance that I found. But it's so interesting. And I think that you just kind of delineated the sort of differences between what it feels like to be a relief vet and what it feels like to be a house call vet. I think that is one of the main differences in the kind of emotional constitution of choosing one or the other path or blending them, getting a little bit of each.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe that is what it is. Maybe it is a blend and, you like a little bit of one, but too much of it is overwhelming. And I think the big point is to know yourself. And
Yeah,
if you don't know yourself, it's okay.
it is.
Like it's okay that you don't know yourself yet because you might know yourself, but you might not know yourself in different contexts. And so try those contexts out. Just try them.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, it's okay. Like, I think that it's a really important point that if you don't know, it's okay. And that you can take time to figure it out and you can dabble, dip a toe in this and that and and find out. And it's totally okay. And the answer might not be what you thought. And sometimes it is exactly what you thought.
Yeah.
Amazing. So, I was going to ask you to share your top 3 tips on how to get started as a relief vet. You've shared numerous tips of amazingness already. Do you have any kind of maybe logistic quick tips for someone who wants to start and doesn't know how?
Yeah. So basically, it's actually really, really easy. Because
Yeah.
if you just want to see if you want to be a relief vet, you can work as what we call a sole proprietor. You don't necessarily have to set up a business right away, an LLC. You don't have to jump through all those hoops. For the most part, and I believe this is true in most, if not all states, you can just go to work. You just need to contact some clinics in your area, figure out what your radius of where you want to work is, and then send out a resume, maybe write a nice cover letter, maybe make some business cards, and then send them out and then follow up with a phone call and just say, hey, I'd love to come by and meet you. I always recommend going and meeting the practice first if you can. I have worked at many places where I've never been there until after I agreed to work. But if you can, it can be helpful because you can kind of see, is this a place where I would want to be? So basically, you can just go out and start getting some work. You will ultimately want to have a separate business bank account, not hard to do. You just set up a business banking account because you're going to want to keep your money separate. As a sole proprietor, you don't have to do that. It just takes a little more bookkeeping to figure out. Right. That's it. That's literally it. That is how you can get started. And then if you want to if you decide you like it and you want to turn it into a business, there are some best practices. And the obvious things, you got to make sure you're licensed in the state where you're working.
Right.
Maybe this goes without saying, but I'll just mention it. You do need professional liability insurance. You need, you're going to have to pay for that. So, it's ideal if you have your own DEA license, but if you don't, there's a workaround, but you can't prescribe and it varies by state. So,
Right. Thank you for mentioning that. That is one of the most common questions that come up in the House Call Vet Academy when I'm telling people about, okay, let's pair relief work with, with house call practice. The DEA stuff comes up constantly. So thank you for bringing that up. That's a really commonly asked question. So I think that would be really helpful for people to hear.
and, again, Relief Rover is working and this is a big lift and is going to be, who knows what's going to happen with it, but we are working to make some changes because it is
Fantastic.
not clear.
It is
Um,
so aggravating. It's so aggravating trying to figure out, like even the lawyers, like I've spoken to so many attorneys and so many DEA experts and they disagree on so much.
yeah.
It's
It's
crazy.
because it's not clear, and they didn't think about locum vets when they wrote the regs.
Yeah,
So,
they didn't know being a relief vet was going to be a thing and they didn't know house call vet was going to be a thing.
yeah, so there's a lot of things that are left up to interpretation and left up to the states, and so there will not be crystal clear answers. And I know that as vets, we love crystal clear answers.
Very much so. In the House Call Vet Academy, we run into that pressure, that sort of resistance of like, well, what is the answer? What is the answer? We don't know. We don't
Yeah.
always know. We have interpretation, multiple interpretations, but we don't have that. And so I'm just super excited that you guys are leaning into that project. It is so needed and it's going to be so helpful for all of us and just to help reduce anxiety of our whole profession around issues, right? It's so anxiety inducing. I wanted to give a shout out to Jan Woods. I don't know if she's working with you guys or if you talked to her, but she is our sort of like in-house DEA expert for the academy. And she's like said things like, "All right, guys, do you have your depends on? I'm about to tell you how this all goes down."
Right. Yeah, no, Jan is amazing. I love her. And yeah, we've actually done a talk together at WBC. And yeah, she's amazing. She's a great resource for people.
Fantastic. Well, I am super excited to have had you on the show. Before we close up, I want to ask two more questions. One, is there anything else that you'd like for people to know about you or about Relief Rover? Anything else you'd like to share with our listeners today before we close up the episode?
I guess I would just say if anyone has questions about relief or you're thinking about it or you want to use it as a try before you buy or whatever, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm a completely open book. I am happy to talk to anyone. And I think you'll include my email in the show
Yeah.
link. So, yeah, definitely don't hesitate to reach out to me. If I for sure don't know everything and if I don't know the answer, I'll try to direct you to a resource or I'll make something up. I don't know.
Good.
But I am happy to try to help anyone that I can or just chat about my experience and all of that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So, for everyone who's listening, Cindy is a really kind and amazing person in our profession, and she's very approachable. So, if anyone has questions, please do reach out to her. I know she means that. And I just want to put a personal endorsement. I've engaged with a few of the companies that sort of matchmake in relief, and I think Relief Rover is my favorite. And, I just love all of the outreach that you guys do. And, you guys go the distance and do bigger work, like fundraisers for really important causes and the legislative level. You guys are doing stuff. So I want to commend you and I want to encourage folks that if they're interested in working with a company that pairs you, Relief Rover in my book is the way to go. And you guys don't charge the vets anything at all. So it's completely free. So like, why not?
Exactly. And we do not work like a staffing agency. It's free for vets and techs. We basically are a subscription model for hospitals. So there's no commission, there's no cost per shift. And if you are in that try before you buy mode and you do find a place where you want to go, staffing agencies, understandably, but have a business model where they basically sell you. The hospital will owe the staffing agency money for you to go work for them. We do not do that. We do not sell veterinarians. You are not inventory. We
Thank
really
you.
just
Thank you. I love that.
yeah,
That.
we just want to
We're
help
not
you
inventory.
connect. No, we want to help you connect and we want to help you find your happy place in vet med. That's really our mission.
Fantastic. I'm super excited to know you and I love what you're doing. And I love that you have this partnership with one of my best friends, Mariam Kamal, as well. And so in closing, I wanted to ask, do you have a favorite beverage since we are in the House Call Vet Cafe? Can be booze, non-booze, coffee, whatever.
Well, I do. I have two favorite beverages depending on time of day. So I'm a super early bird. So I cannot wait every morning for my cup of coffee. I just love my cup of coffee in the morning. But I also love a fun craft cocktail. Not in the morning, but later at an appropriate time. I love a craft cocktail. And because I'm a sampler, I'm kind of open to all different kinds of them.
Fantastic. Yeah, we'll have to invite, as soon as I open my restaurant flight, I'll invite you over for a craft cocktail flight and coffee flight.
That is so perfect. That is your next reinvention of yourself.
It is a restaurateur.
I love it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today, Cindy. I appreciate your perspectives and your experience and everything that you are doing for our profession. So thanks.
Thank you for having me. It was super fun.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the House Call Vet Cafe. If you enjoyed this episode, then hit the subscribe or follow button on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts so you never have to miss an episode. This podcast is made specifically for you, so don't be shy if you'd like to reach out and let me know your thoughts on this episode. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook as The House Call Vet Academy, where I also share more valuable content. If you're interested in learning more about consulting for house call vets or the House Call Vet Academy online course and community, please click on the link in the show notes. Have an amazing rest of your day, and I can't wait for you to join us for our next episode of the House Call Vet Cafe.
If you're looking for help with ultrasound scanning, check out First Opinion Veterinary Ultrasound for independent machine reviews and online and in-person teaching options. FOVU, simplifying ultrasound.